Donkey Kong has always been a guilty pleasure of mine. You can do no wrong by playing arcade Donkey Kong and its sequels. By the SNES, our admirable ape got to live a life of its own in Donkey Kong Country, and the N64 even gave him a new dimension to play around with. But that's when Nintendo and Mario tried rebelling against the courageous Kong. The GameCube and Wii era brought him to his lowest point in life, and it seemed like the end for a moment there. But if you've been paying attention to the news, the world's changed since the GameCube released in 2001, and the audacious ape is back in town.
Here we go. Performance for you. If you know the words, you can join in too.
Donkey Kong is the new star of Nintendo, and if you don't believe it, tell me, where's the new 3D Mario? Where's the 2D Mario? Our darling Donkey even has his own theme park. But this glorious return has been a long time in the making, because Mario has been constantly trying to tear down our adorable ape. It's obvious that Donkey Kong was the antagonist of his titular arcade game, but it also raised very interesting questions. If Nintendo wanted Mario to be the mascot of their new gaming ventures, surely they would have named the game Super Mario, right? But no. Deep down, Nintendo knew that they wanted Donkey Kong as the hero. But what must be in sheer denial, Nintendo made a sequel to Donkey Kong and made certain to show our amazing ape being punished. Then again, we're not even playing as Mario this time, so there's that. That's until we had Donkey Kong 3 come out. This is the start of the Donkey decline. Not only is the dapper Donkey being tortured, but they're not even using Mario so he can save face and remain the true hero. This era of Donkey Kong is a mixed bag. In one sense, he saved the company, and even gaming as a whole, because if it weren't for the success of 1981 arcade Donkey Kong, it's entirely possible that video games as we know it wouldn't exist in America. Donkey Kong Jr. expanded the character to show his loving family side. Even when faced with death, Donkey Kong Jr. would do anything to save his dad. And at last, Donkey Kong 3 shows that even in innocence, Donkey Kong is a victim. But this is just the beginning of his story. Nintendo took a liking to Mario this generation, putting him in just about every game. But Donkey Kong's in the shadows, waiting for his chance to become the star again. And the SNES is a start. The Donkey Kong trilogy for the SNES is the zenith Donkey Kong era. But honestly, I haven't really finished any of them. I love them, and they're far better than anything that Plumber's ever done, but I'd be lying if I said they were my all-time favorite games that I would play breakfast, lunch, and dinner. No, that game comes later. But just because I'm too brain-rotted to finish any of those masterpieces, doesn't mean they're anything but exactly that. Masterpieces. These games expand Donkey delightfully in a new direction, where he is unequivocally the true hero of his story, with the new villains King K. Rool and the Kremlings. Super Mario World has some fantastic platforming, but it looks outright shameful compared to Donkey Kong Country, man. This game has everything, and everything is done with such beauty and tenderness, but it wasn't, and this game was diminished to a lowly Mario spin-off that only sold half as much as Mario World with the trilogy combined. A ripe shame. These games are all fantastic, but they're simply not getting the recognition they deserve. Why should one auspicious ape be worth less than another? This Kingpin Kong should be the face of the company, not that pathetic plumber. But everything goes down from here. The N64 was a rough time for everyone. That's something worth admitting. But even in hardship, our beautiful, affectionate ape stuck through and delivered an incredible performance. Donkey Kong 64 is the classy Kong's first and only appearance in 3D platforming, until his fateful return to be seen. Now, all of the Donkey Kong Country games up to this point have been made by Rareware, but this here specifically is their magnum opus. Donkey Kong's path from champion of gaming to being nearly forgotten is synonymous with the success and disappearance of Rareware, or simply Rare. During the NES era, Rare was a third-party developer who predominantly made licensed games for the NES, with a handful being published by Nintendo. That's until 1994, when a 25% stake of the company was bought by Nintendo, officially turning them into a second-party developer, who makes games for Nintendo and their properties without being fully controlled or owned by them. This was fantastic, because the same company that made classics like Wheel of Fortune Family Edition and Battletoads would go on to make Donkey Kong Country, a game we've already established to be incredible, and should I say, is widely regarded as one of the best games of all time. This partnership seemed to be the best thing for both companies. Rare was able to pump out record-breaking games every year, making Nintendo millions, giving their IPs worldwide acknowledgement, and Rare had ample support to make their own unique IPs exclusive to Nintendo that allowed them to play around with their more mature and creative side. To be frank, without Rare, the N64 would have been dead in the ground. This partnership that eventually grew to Nintendo owning a 49% stake in the company provided the N64 with more than half the games you'd probably think about when mentioning the console. Donkey Kong 64, Diddy Kong Racing, Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Perfect Dark, Golden Eye 007. 4 out of the N64's top 10 best-selling games are on this list, and it's no surprise either. They're all great games. But when times got hard for Rare and their support began waning, they sought after a potential buyer. Nintendo was given an opportunity to bid for Rare, but ultimately, the company was sold off to Microsoft. And as the fates decree, Rare would make some successful games, but ultimately, they'll fade out into the shadows, leaving all their legacy characters to wither away. Where's the kissable Kong in all of this? That's right. With a new primary developer, we've seen some unique ventures for the affable ape. Namely, with Rare gone, our dear Donkey had an all-out crisis of identity. He's nothing without Rare. So maybe, he needs to find a better way to live on without them. He needs to find a way to stand out in a crowd of Luigi's Mansions and Animal Crossings. He needs to be better. Better. He needs to be better. Platformers on the SNES are one thing, but if Mario can do that, anyone can. On the N64 too, Donkey Kong was copying Mario again. Back when I knew Donkey Kong in the arcades and on the NES, he was a trailblazer. Nobody had platforming quite like this in those days, and he made it perfect, down to the last detail. But when Mario began overshadowing him, Donkey Kong lost his confidence, and with it, everything that made him special. He was a victim of habit, only doing what was done before. He was never going to return to his rightful seat as the King Kong if he stayed down this pathway. But something all changed in 2004. Something brought back his mojo. Something made him a hero again. Something that everyone else was too scared to do before. Making a platformer that uses a bongo and clapping as the controller is a monolithic feat. But if anyone could do it, it was the Defiant Donkey. This is my all-time favorite Donkey Kong game. Probably platformer, and perhaps straight up just my all-round favorite game of all time. Financially, this was the absolute lowest point for Donkey Kong, but that means nothing. This game revived his chi. Everything you do in the game has sauce. Building up combos throughout a level to collect endless hordes of bananas is incredibly satisfying. And while each boss fight variant eventually becomes repetitive, they remain as a gratifying challenge that rewards you for mastering the different gameplay mechanics. My only complaint is that the game doesn't last longer. But even then, I can forgive it, because playing through each of these levels over and over to see the highest score you can get is more than enjoyable. This game set a new tone for Donkey Kong. He's not just another Nintendo platformer. He's goofy. He's inventive. He's going back to Donkey Kong Country. Donkey Kong Country Returns may appear as a remake of the original Donkey Kong Country games, but I'd like to think of it more as a reimagining of the original story, with a new evolution in gameplay. Unfortunately, they didn't bring back the bongo gameplay for this one, but they did take the original Donkey Kong Country gameplay and fix it in all of the right ways to modernize it, and build the perfect 2D platformer. Almost perfect 2D platformer. There isn't much to be said here that hasn't already been said, but if you want to enjoy Donkey Kong in near perfection and don't have any bonkos, Donkey Kong Country has returned. And then he returned 2, 3, 4 other times just for you. While there's only 2 games in this revival, you technically need to own 5 different copies to truly complete the Donkey Kong Country Returns duology. 6 copies. Tropical Freeze takes what Returns did and made it even better, finally giving Donkey Kong his perfect game. But after that game released in 2014, something changed. Donkey Kong stopped getting new games. The new company working on Donkey Kong, Retro Studios, was stuck for years developing Metroid Prime 4. Luckily, unlike Rare, Retro is owned by Nintendo, and we likely won't lose them anytime soon. But throughout the life of the Wii U and Switch, the assertive ape was reduced to ports of Donkey Kong Country games and a handful of Mario vs. Donkey Kong things that nobody really even played. With all of these legendary games of recent, Donkey Kong ought to be Nintendo's savior. But he's rather the forgotten sheep, left to fend for himself in a crowd of heathens and savages. He was nearly forgotten. Until something changed. Either from a sort of divine intervention or the fates aligning, Donkey Kong was awoken from his endless slumber. Early into production of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, a shift happened internally at Nintendo. I believe they finally realized the Great Ape's abundance of potential. Projects started moving into place, Mario got shafted back to the sewers, and Donkey Kong would rise up to his crescent throne. But one thing had to be put into order first. To take your rightful seat as king, you have to look the part. That's when Nintendo gave our cultured Kong a complete makeover. Now, the astonishing ape is more expressive than ever. Not just goofy, in a good way, but now he has the power to show his deep emotions in every layer of his character. More adorable than ever, Donkey Kong is ready to show the world what he's worth. And that's where we are today. The Nintendo Switch 2 revealed many things about Nintendo. Many things. But among these, their acknowledgement that Donkey Kong should be the rightful mascot of Nintendo as we go into this new era of the company. While I'm sure they had to keep Mario Kart's name the same out of habit, it's clear that the real star of Mario Kart World is Donkey Kong with his refined go-karting skills. But that's not even the most telling piece of evidence. I ask you again, where is the new 3D Mario? Heck, where even is the new 2D Mario? Back in the Wii U days, they were pumping those games out every year, but since then, they've slowed down to a near complete halt. Is that for quality control or to make sure the game is completely fun and not a recycle of the previous game each time? No, of course not. It's because they're saving this moment for someone who deserves it. If we just consider the 2D side of things real quick, what do you think Nintendo has been doing during the months between the time the Switch 2 was announced and when they had the full reveal in the Direct? You'd probably bet they're driving up hype for the new console, making sure everyone was aware that a new kid's in town, and he's better than the old one in every way. Except, no. Rarely did they do that. Instead, even days before the Switch 2 Direct, they only had one thing on their mind: Donkey Kong Country Returns for the Nintendo Switch. They even used American icons and heroes like the Rizzler, and to a lesser extent, the Costco guys, to advertise this game. Nintendo wanted, nay, Nintendo needed everyone to be aware of this game. And now that we are awoken to discover what will soon be known as the best 3D platformer since sliced bread. Donkey Kong Bananza is not just Donkey Kong's return to 3D platforming, it's Donkey Kong's return to the limelight. He's not just a random game that appears 2 years into a successful console's lifespan, he's right there from the start, a testament to Nintendo's faith in him, that he'll not only appeal to fans, but to everyone, and become the reason millions more will buy a Switch 2. Did you know that this is the first Donkey Kong game made in-house at Nintendo since, well, looky here, Donkey Kong Jungle Beat? Every other Donkey Kong was thrown out and passed around by second-party developers like he was nothing. But he's different now. In reality, the only other time Nintendo trusted Donkey Kong enough to plunge their own time and resources into it was for Jungle Beat, and all the way back in the arcade days. This new Donkey Kong isn't just another game, it's the product of years and years of torment and tribulations faced by the ambitious ape, and it ends all on a happy note, with him finally getting the respect he deserves. This studio developing Donkey Kong Bananza isn't just some tiny in-house branch that works on the scraps. This is made by the same people who did Mario Odyssey. Nintendo 100% could have taken the easy way out and made a new 3D Mario the launch title for this Switch 2. But this isn't a console for Mario. This isn't even a console for Zelda. This is a console for Donkey Kong. He's a gift, but not just a gift for me with them releasing the game on my birthday, but a gift for everyone ever so fortunate to be graced by the visage of Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong isn't just a game for me, it's a lifestyle. I only do as Donkey Kong would. WWDKDD. What would Donkey Kong do? The Switch 2 is the start of an incredibly exciting new era for Nintendo. And while it may not be progressing exactly how we or they may want it to at this moment, I can't help but remain excited. And not just for Donkey Kong, but for everything else surrounding it. Mario Kart, Zelda, GameCube NSO, which, if I may say something, if it doesn't get Donkey Kong Jungle Beat within the next couple months, I'm gonna go ape crap on Nintendo. But until then, subscribe for more monkeying around. I hope you get your daily recommended supply of potassium, and as always, keep cool. Bye!